Hello, Prospervarians. The best school has come to stay in the city of Calabar. It is called Beryl International Schools. Take advantage of this opportunity now.
Tell me the best school, Beryl is the best. Tell me the best school.
Greetings to you all, pupils of grade 5. And welcome once again to our online class on social studies. With you today is your class teacher, Mr. Oga Joseph. And on social studies today, we'll be looking at a very interesting topic known as what? Group conflict. Group conflict. Before we look at group conflict, we'll quickly remind ourselves on our previous topic, which was consequences of gender discrimination. Consequences of gender discrimination. And remember, in that class, we were made to understand what gender is. And we said that gender simply tells when one is either a male or a female. And we also said that gender discrimination arises when one is being deprived of his or her right and access to resources. When we went further to talk about the consequences of gender discrimination, we said that gender discrimination can actually lead to underutilization of resources. And remember, I said that both male and female are gifted in their different ways. And because these people possess great potentials, if we begin to give credit to a particular gender, we see that other gender who have this potential cannot be effectively utilized, thereby causing underutilization. I also mentioned instances where organizations tend to employ a certain gender, for example, the male gender, believing that this service can be actually provided well by the male gender, thereby ignoring a particular gender. Meanwhile, this other gender to have the capability to carry out these services. Now, in our political environment, we also stated that some of these political environment tend to allow only the male to file for political or elective positions. And it's because of this that we end up sometimes appointing people who lack the capability to perform. Now, by so doing, we also violate the human right or the fundamental human right of being able to vote and be voted for. Alright, now this gender discrimination also leads to so many consequences as we mentioned in that class. And because of that, we say that it can also do what? Leads to some kind of deprived being people from a particular process, maybe in terms of recruiting or appointing of people. Alright, having said that, we are going to look at this group conflict. And bearing in mind what we have discussed from there, you can also tell that those attitudes exhibited in as a form of discrimination can actually lead to what? Conflict. Because if a particular gender is being given the privilege to exercise or being appointed or recruited in some of these organizations, the other gender might actually be against this process. And because they're not satisfied with this process, it can lead to what we call group conflict. So you can now see the relationship between this new topic and what we have actually treated before. Now, in our different societies, we have or experience what? Conflict in one way or the other. It is no longer news that people fight themselves because of a particular interest. Now, what causes this conflict? Now, this conflict can be caused as a result of maybe a certain interest that can actually lead to a fight, or can lead to a quarrel, or can lead to what? A disagreement. And all of these things can actually happen, either take place within people or groups of people or countries. over what? Something. Now this something is the interest behind what these people are fighting for. So it's on that case that we say that the conflict could be refers to as a struggle, a fight, a quarrel, or a disagreement between people, groups, or countries over something. Now this something, like I said, is our different interests. Now the interest at which we want people, or we want for ourselves, is what can actually lead to conflict. Now, looking at our environment or society today, so many persons have their different interests in one way or the other. Some of these interests might actually be personal, while some can actually be for the good of all the members of the society. And because of that, some other persons who are not comfortable with this interest can actually revolt against it. Alright, now, before people start having conflict or fight over some certain thing, what is this thing that causes what? Conflict. What is this thing that causes conflict? Now, there are causes of group conflict. Group conflict can actually arise from all of these things I want to list for you. Now we have lack of cooperation. Like we said before, if people are in a particular establishment or organization and they lack this cooperation, that means the willingness to work together with one another in order to achieve a certain goal. You will definitely believe with me that there is bound to be what? There is bound to be conflict within or between these people. Now, the self-purpose of this organization is supposed to be maintained by exhibiting what? Cooperation within colleagues or workers in that establishment. Now, even in our families, for instance, some other persons also have their different interests. And because they have their different interests, maybe the interest of the family sometimes is being neglected. And because it's being neglected, either by the parents or other members of the families, you see that definitely conflict will do what? Arise. So that is why lack of cooperation can actually cause group conflict. Now another one we have here is lack of mutual understanding. Lack of mutual understanding. Lack of mutual understanding can greatly influence conflict in our society, family, community, state or country as large. Now, because people lack this mutual understanding has to do with me being willing and ready to understand with the situation at hand, the situation happening within us, being able and ready to bear the challenge within that particular time. Now, I can understand that this person has a certain challenge in this area, therefore I had to tolerate in that particular moment. Now, there are some persons who lack this ability to understand, and because there is no mutual understanding, you tend to feel that it's all well with this person, and maybe this particular act exhibited by this person is actually intentional, while it might not be so. So because of this lack of mutual understanding, it can lead to group conflict. Now the number 3 we have is lack of trust. Believe me, that lack of trust is a great influencer to group conflict. So many persons have been suffering this in our society or family, as the case may be, because of what? Lack of trust. Now, different aspects of our life or social life, people tend to turn others down because of what? The lack of trust. Now, people in their ignorance sometimes entrust themselves or their private life to others, believing that they are being confiding with them. But at the end of the day, this person maybe go out and give this confidential information to some other persons or third party which was not necessary. And because of that, it can actually lead to what? Conflict. And when you see that some other person exposes your information which you confide within this person, you will definitely not be happy. So that case can actually resolve to what? Group conflict. Now, the number 4 causes of group conflict is ethnicism. Number 4 causes of group conflict is what? Ethnicism. Now, ethnicism has to do with a very special interest towards a what? Ethnic group or ethnic background. Now, there are some persons who are so addicted to their cultural background, which has to do with their ethnicity. Now, they believe that their own ethnic group should be superior to the other. Meanwhile, we are supposed to have what we call cultural diversity. Now, because these persons or group of persons are addicted to their cultural background and believe that their culture should supersede the other person's culture, thereby condemning every other person's culture in order to promote their own culture. This attitude or actions exhibited by these persons can actually contribute to group conflict. And remember, every cultural heritage is unique in its own way and therefore should be respected and tolerated. Now, we have been able to talk about the causes of group conflict, which we have mentioned: lack of cooperation, lack of mutual understanding, lack of trust, and fourthly, we mentioned ethnicism. Now, if these 4 items were listed can actually cause group conflict, that means that definitely as human beings we are bound to face the consequences of exhibiting this conflict. So it's on that note that we are going to now look at the consequences of group conflict. Consequences of conflict. Now, having exhibited all of these things that result to conflict within us as man, there is bound for these items listed here to arise. Now, consequences has to do with what we face as a result of having conflict within ourselves, group, or society. Now, if we are faced with conflict, definitely there will be what? Bitterness. That's number 1. Point number 1 for consequences of conflict. Now, there will be what? Bitterness. Now, believe with me that if one gets in a fight or quarrel or disagreement with other people, group, or other countries as the case may be, at the end of that fight, which is conflict, definitely you might not feel happy, or the people involved in such fight will definitely not feel happy, and therefore it can now cause what? Bitterness. Now, the bitterness is that you are not happy and your emotions might have been tampered with. Then number 2, consequences of conflict has to do with isolation and loneliness. Isolation and what? Loneliness. Now, when you fight with other people, at the end of that fight, which we are talking about, you see that people tend to avoid you after that conflict. People tend to do what? Avoid you, or you definitely want to adopt a certain approach by avoiding other people in order not to get involved in conflict anymore. So that process you are trying to avoid other persons can actually lead to what? Isolation. That means you are now distancing yourself from other people in order not to get involved in a fight or conflict. Now, as a result of that, since you are now different or distancing yourself from other people, it can lead to what? Loneliness in any place you find yourself. Now, you are now being lonely because you want to distance yourself from people. Now, because you are lonely, that becomes the consequences of what you are facing as a result of what? Conflict. Now, the number 3 is the loss of lives and properties. Loss of lives and properties. Now, as a result of conflict. Now, believe me, like we said before, that conflict will be referred to as what? A struggle, a fight, or a quarrel or disagreement between what? People, groups, or countries. That means that definitely there is possibility of what? Lives being lost or properties being destroyed as a result of what? Conflict. We have witnessed that or experienced that in different intercommunal crashes or interstate or intercountry kind of conflict where properties and lives are being what? Destroyed in the process of fighting, a certain cause. All of these things are what we face as a result of what? A conflict we have within that particular time. So, conflict can actually lead to what? Loss of lives and properties. You see that sometimes when other countries are involved in a fight with another country, most military men are being killed in the process of fighting to defend the interests of their own country. Now, another consequences of group conflict is that it's slow and uneven development. It's slow and uneven development. Now, this means that in the process of fighting or having conflict with other people or group, as the case may be, we cannot certainly have a progressive progress within that particular time, because even our resources will be tampered with or destroyed. And if this conflict affects our economy, for instance, you see that there is bound to delay in what? In progress, in development. Now, you see that we tend to destroy things, destroy our health facilities or social amenities, as the case may be. And if that is being done, you see that development will certainly not come in. And if development seems to come in, it will actually take a longer period of time. Now, a certain development that is supposed to be achieved within a short time frame will now take a longer time frame to come. Alright, having seen this as the consequences of conflict, which we have mentioned like 4 items on the board: bitterness, isolation and loneliness, loss of lives and property. I also talk about slow and uneven development, which I have explained. Now that means that even when there is development already and conflict seems to come in, this conflict can as well bring about uneven development. It can destroy the already developed places. Now, when this place is being destroyed, you see that it's now back to a very fertile stage where you now seem to now make a different approach towards developing that area or region. Now, having seen this, there's need for us to do what? To strategize towards conflict resolution. There's need for us to do what? Strategize towards conflict resolution. So it's on that note, I'm going to introduce you to the strategies for conflict resolution. Strategies for conflict resolution. Strategies for conflict resolution. Now, in order for us to solve the problems of conflict, there's need for us to adopt some possible ways that can actually put an end to the conflict we experience. There's need for us to put or consider some certain ways to solve the problem of conflict. So for we to solve the problem of conflict, we should first of all do these items I've listed on the board. Number 1 is to make sure that the parties involved understand each other. If we're able to make sure that parties involved in conflict at the end of the day are able to understand each other, you believe with me that the problem of conflict is alright, so it's solved. Because where there is understanding, definitely there won't be conflict. And remember I said that one of the problem of or causes of conflict is what? Lack of mutual understanding. Now, if there is what? Understanding by the parties involved in conflict, definitely we have actually been able to find solution to what? To conflict. Then, number two, what we are expected to do is to ensure that the parties involved are willing to resolve the conflict so that they can live in peace with each other. If we ensure that these persons or group of people involved or these communities involved in what? Conflict are willing to resolve this conflict, thereby calling for what? Peaceful meetings in order for these persons to exercise or pour out their grievances so that it can be settled within a particular atmosphere, so that these people can now go further to live in peace with one another. And remember, they should be willing to resolve the conflict. Now, willingness to resolve the conflict can also give us a solution to what? To conflict. Then, point number three is that we should organize a dialogue in order to get the parties involved to express their feelings and thoughts. We should organize a dialogue in order to get parties involved to express their feelings and thoughts. Now, this is where there will be need for us to call on town hall meetings, as the case may be. Calling on these persons or parties that are involved in this conflict to do what? To come forward a resolution. Now, if a resolution is being made, you can see that their feelings and thoughts can be expressed and captured in order to find solution to the conflict. Now, this approach can actually lead us to having what? A permanent solution to what? To group conflict. Now, the next one is that we should allow a neutral group to settle the dispute. Allow a neutral group to settle a dispute. Now, this, for instance, if Group A is having a conflict with Group B. Now, and if you allow Group A to now go further to settle the matter with Group B, you definitely see that the interest of Group B might not be captured. There will still be what? A gap between the interest of Group A and that of Group B. Now, because of this, Group B might actually not be comfortable with such an idea or approach. So it's on this note that we are advised to allow a neutral ground. That means a body that is not part of Group A's opinion, neither Group B's opinion. This neutral body should be responsible for what? Settling such a dispute, because it is believed that a neutral body can actually give what? A sincere judgment that will benefit two parties, believing that that body have no interest in any of their fight or struggle. So these 4 points are the strategies for what? Conflict resolution. So if they are being applied, you can see that it can help us to do what? Find solution to our conflict as a problem within our society. Alright, now so far we have been able to learn about what? Group conflict. And we said that conflict could be what? Refers to as what? A struggle, a fight, a quarrel, or a disagreement between people, groups, or countries over what? Something. That means there must be something like interest for people to do what? Fight, quarrel over. So these actions are what we call what? Conflict. Now there have been different conflict between what? Different groups. Like even in the political environment, people tend to fight other political parties in what is as a way of ensuring that their own interest is being maintained. All of these things are what we refer to as what? Group conflict. So a particular party fighting the other party in order to maintain their interest. So How do we get to cause this thing? That's why we listed the causes of group conflict to either come from these 4 items as the case may be. We say that lack of cooperation can actually attribute to the cause of what? Group conflict. Lack of mutual understanding as well can cause what? Group conflict. Lack of trust also can cause group conflict, and as well as ethnicism. Then, looking at what we suffer as a result of this conflict in our society is what we mentioned or listed on the board. We said that consequences of conflict can include these 4 items. Number 1, we say bitterness. Number 2, we say isolation and loneliness. Number 3, we say loss of lives and property. Number 4, say slow and uneven development. All of these are what we tend to face or experience as a result of what? Conflict in our society or state as we find ourselves. Then we also went further to talk about the strategies for conflict resolution, and we were able to list out 4 strategies that if we do them, it can actually put an end or solve the problem of what? Conflict. And we said that if we make sure that parties involved understand each other, it will definitely save the problem of what? Conflict. And also ensure that the parties involved are willing to resolve the conflict so that they can live in peace with each other. Then thirdly, we say we can help to solve the problem of conflict by organizing a dialogue. That was to organize a dialogue in order to get the parties involved to express their feelings and thoughts. Most times, conflict might actually arise if a particular group are not allowed to express their feelings or thoughts. So if this room is given to them, you can see that we help to solve the problem of what? Ethnicity. Then lastly, we say that we allow a neutral group to settle the dispute. A neutral group is capable of settling this dispute because it's believed that this group might not have any interest in the other fighting group. So they'll stand a better chance to find solutions to where we have this problem. So we have actually come to the end of today's class. I believe you have actually learned a lot from today's class. So before I leave, let me quickly give you an assignment. Alright, as a way of ending the lesson for today, we are expected to do this few assignments. Now on the assignment, we are asked to, number 1, mention 3 strategies for conflict resolution. Mention 3 strategies for conflict resolution. Number 2, what you understand by dialogue. What is dialogue? Number 3, what is ethnicism? What is ethnicism? Then number 4, how can ethnicism lead to conflict? How can ethnicism lead to conflict? Alright, believe that you have been taught all of this and definitely you find it very simple to do your assignment. And for the one you don't understand, please make your research and find answers to them. Alright, with that we have come to the end of today's class. Remember that the pandemic is still not over. Please stay safe while you apply all the necessary measures to keep you safe. Thank you for having me. I am Mr. Oga Joseph. Bye for now.